Hello, I'm here with Nin Castle, Ian Brown, and Dale Floer. And we're here in the attic in Amsterdam. The Fashion for Good process and incubator, it's on its way. And as you may know, every 6 months there's a new group of innovators. And we have the privilege, the honor of talking with a few of them today. Nin Castle is from a company called Reverse Resources. Ian Brown and Dale Floer are from SGTI, which they will then expand upon, right? I don't want to say the whole word, the whole name out and get it wrong, so we'll do that after. But both of these organizations are potentially working in similar areas, and we thought that we would gather them together to discuss briefly what their innovations are and how they see them making an impact. So welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Howdy. Hello.
Oh, very good. The guys from Vancouver, a little more understated. Nin, actually, we've met a long time ago. Nin used to come to Stockholm to present her groundbreaking work then, so it's good to see you again, very much so. So I thought we could start with Reverse Resources to find out a little bit more, because I think some of the research you've done in your organization can set the scene for both of your initiatives, your innovations. So maybe tell us just briefly a little about who you are, your background, and how did you end up here?
Okay, well, my background, I come from a design background. I know yourself because I had a sustainable design label, and I specialized in the reuse of fabrics, but in a very standardized mass production sort of format. And that has led me on to now working with Reverse Resources. And our aim is to create a software to enable the circular economy for the recycling and the reuse of textiles. We've seen that there's a huge amount of waste during the fashion supply chain. To give you an example, we've measured that so far research shows that at least 25% of all textile fibre produced flows out of the supply chain during fabric and garment production, which is more than double than what most brands estimate. In places like Bangladesh, for example, we see that around a quarter of all profits come from the sales of leftovers. And that's quite shocking because they don't earn very much money per kilogram for the leftovers. It's just that the volumes are so big. It's become this very important second margin to them. And actually we see that it's, interestingly, what is fueling the low price points of the fast fashion industry. So it's quite an intricate web that we have created ourselves, and there's very little visibility about the volumes of leftovers created. There are no official statistics. It's a very unexplored area of the fashion industry, and we were lucky enough to win the H&M Global Change Award a couple of years ago, and that really allowed us to open some doors, allowed us to do some really deep research into this area, and it's been quite shocking what we found.
So let me follow up on some of those stats. Mm-hmm. I read from your work that around 6 million tons of leftovers are spilled in Southeast Asia and China. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that could be the equivalent of 18 billion new clothes?
I would have 18 million new clothes, not billion.
Right. Okay, 18 million new clothes. Yeah. And an equivalent of a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
15 billion US dollars in Southeast Asia and China is what the value of these leftovers is worth if we could remanufacture them, reuse the fabrics within the factories, and also recycle them.
You mentioned that you think that this is one of the drivers of the low price point in fashion. How do you see the connection?
Well, we see that actually a lot of factories, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in Asia, you receive a second margin for the sales of leftovers, and that's varying. It can be very small to a lot bigger, depending also what the textile is, whether it's a cotton or a polyester. But we see in Asia that the volumes are so large that's when it's become this, and it's not the factory's point. They are so they're so squeezed from every angle that sometimes they receive a 2% profit margin, and you can't run a business on a 2% profit margin. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So of course, any other kind of income, it becomes very meaningful for them, and it's not like And it's a beginning, it was just left to the factories to deal with this waste. But it's actually become this very meaningful second margin for them. And then it's created this little bit of mystery around the volumes. So therefore, there are no statistics, and brands find it very difficult to access their true volumes of leftovers they're creating. And we see that that's a real block to the circular economy, because actually it's these pre-consumer waste, so these production leftovers as we call them, that are the ones being recycled already, because they're the easiest to recycle. They should be easier to organise and manage than the post-consumer waste, and also often they're easier to actually for the processing, because they haven't got so much contamination, zips, whatever, or affect the fabrics in its very premium condition for recycling. So it's actually, in a way, they're the low-hanging fruit of the circular economy. It's just that we don't pay any attention to them, and that's 25% of our resources that we're just ignoring. It's just quite
I can see the potential.
Crazy.
It's quite dramatic. So what do you do again? You mentioned your software. So what does your organization do? What do you do in the organization?
Well, it's really simple, in fact, because what we see is that there's no information flow, there's no communication. When the fabric's in the factory, it gets picked up by this very informal network of traders. And by informal is a kind of diplomatic way of saying black market run by organised crime, essentially. And they sort the textiles by touch and burn, and then it gets sent on. But the traders have no idea what composition it is, what brand it is, where it's come from, what chemical treatments it's had. They know nothing of that textile history. So it's simply by creating this sort of waste inventory software for free for garment factories to use. They can segregate and see what has value, segregate the scraps. Also have the opportunity to reuse larger pieces back into production. They then give those scraps on to the traders. The traders know for the first time what they're actually dealing with, and it opens up, and then they can pass it on to the recycler. The recycler knows what they're getting, and it opens up this sort of wealth of opportunities with existing recycling technologies, and also for this emerging recycling technologies that are being scaled at the moment. It's really important we get these systems in place, especially if you think about it. This back end of the industry is in complete chaos at the moment, but actually in the future it's going to become the front end of the circular industry, and we need to get this sort of traceability in place so we don't end up sort of where we are now, trying to unpick our supply chain at the moment. We have the perfect opportunity to create transparency, traceability within this circular supply chain.
Okay. So the software allows you to track, trace, and assess the types of materials.
Yeah, and communication between all the stakeholders, which is just not happening.
Would this software enable a company who basically has the scraps, has the leftovers, to reuse them in their processes as well? So not necessarily sell them on to the traders, which they're doing now, but actually take advantage of this spill in a much more effective way.
So we see about 20% of the leftovers created are actually these roll-end pieces, which are the same fabric width, but in the range of about 0.5 metre to 5 metres or 10, depending on the category for dead stock within that factory. And normally these fabrics at the moment get bundled off and sold off with the scraps, sometimes for a little bit more money separated, but often not. And actually we see a big potential for using these in next purchase orders, and this is what we call remanufacturing. And I'll give you a quick example of how they can be used. So I see a lot of potential with the denims. So for example, we did a case where we just took the fly facing out of a pair of jeans, and we used the roll-end pieces from another production where, let's say, it was 10 grams heavier, the denim, or 20 grams lighter. A small difference, but nothing that's actually going to impact the end garment at all, the aesthetic or the fit. And just by taking that out on a production run of 5,500 jeans, we saved 114 meters of fabric. So there can be, imagine how many jeans are made every year. And it's not applicable for every production type, but on a continuously running design, like trousers and shirts and jeans and items like that, we can save a lot of fabrics by remanufacturing these roll-on pieces back into production.
So you mentioned your software. Did I hear the word free?
It's free for garment factories, to use as a waste inventory tool. And our revenue comes from when we create the matches or when different users. So when you it's free at the base level, but then when you want to have more services, then you pay for those. It will be a very reasonable amount. So for example, if a recycler wants to access the chemical history of that scrap, they'll have a small charge for it and so on and so forth. But a very reasonable one. We're not going to be, but because it's going to be, so the volume is going to be so big.
Okay, so it's a bit of a marketplace
in a way,
as well?
Yeah, exactly. It's this sort of waste inventory system to help organize the waste. And then the other side of it is like a software as a service platform, connecting the different stakeholders within the industry and sending the information around where it's needed.
Do you have a sense of the potential impact of this if it scales?
I think the real impact comes from the brands, because at the moment they are really removed from the circular economy. They can't really, their post-consumer waste is just like a minefield for them. How can they ever know what's theirs? They have no access to the pre-consumer, the production leftovers, and they're kind of working on this sort of industry as a general statistics. There's nothing that's really related to them. And we all know that when we're actually properly involved in a process or a project, we're so much more motivated for its success. And I think that when they can have connection and information on what they are doing, and actually we are having this, a very small amount, Ellen MacArthur Foundation estimated it was only 1%. But we are being circular, we have created the circular supply chain, and it would be amazingly motivating for brands to see where they are already closing the loop, where that's going to, make connection between the brands and the recycler. Oh wow, so much of my leftovers go, I'd like to buy that recycled yarn back again. Creating those better relationships between the different stakeholders. And I think that's really where so much potential comes. We can create KPIs on how much leftovers are being created, where they're flown to, what areas need to be increased, so the brands actually have a benchmark to start improving upon, because at the moment it's very difficult for them.
They literally don't have the data.
They don't have any data.
So a big part of this is data mining as well, being able to know what's going on so you can make better decisions.
And in the future we will have this big database which will enable a lot of different communications within the circular economy as well, and looking into blockchain technologies as well to help manage that.
Oh no, she said blockchain.
Yeah.
Bro, exactly. We'll get into that. Lovely. Well, I did read that you all estimated that potentially at its scale this could reduce virgin materials by 3%,
2%
to 3%.
Yeah. We've even been in some denim factories where they said it could be 6% reduction within the factory.
And that's where you get your real.
Yeah, that's
your
the
real
estimate.
impact.
We haven't confirmed that yet. So that's just an analyst.
Very good, Nin. This is interesting, and we're keen to see how it evolves and such. I'd like to shift over to Ian and Dale, because I know that in some ways this issue of spill and unused material waste in general relates a little bit to what you're doing, but in a different way. So first, before we begin, tell me about yourselves. We start with Dale. How did you end up here today?
So
I know you were born in Vancouver.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Exactly. A miracle happened.
I was actually born in Alberta, but
Okay, is there a competition between the Vancouver region and the Alberta region that I don't know of? Or?
maybe a little bit. I don't know. It's been a long time. I mean, I really got into this because I was trying to imagine what the future of manufacturing would look like. That what would Walmart look like in 10 or 15 years? And I could see how a lot of the stuff, a chair, a table, that sort of stuff could be made on demand. And I'm like, how would clothing be done that way? Does the technology exist to do it? And sort of found that it didn't. And decided to do something about it with Ian.
And is this something you've worked with before, or is this in your wheelhouse when you started?
I mean, I've been interested in 3D printing, as like a hobbyist, but no.
Technical background? Do you have
Yeah, I've been programming for 22-ish years,
so there's your entry point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then for me, I was born in the Vancouver area. I went to school there, got my engineering degree there. And then when it was coming time to stop working on projects with friends and go look for a real job, quotation marks, I wondered to myself, like, I don't like how my clothes fit. This is annoying. I have to go out and buy new clothes and I don't want to. How would I build a machine to make clothes?
So this was directly related to your anxiety about job interviews?
Oh no. This was my dislike of going out and shopping for clothes.
Yes, I know lots of people like that.
Seeing the quality of my cargo pants and polos deteriorate over the years, because I still had them, because I still have cargo pants from like over a decade ago when I was like just getting out of high school, and the quality had gone down. I was just like, I'm getting less for my money. This is ridiculous. How would I, do it myself? We have the technology. And then that actually is true, because we literally do have the technology. It's in almost every other field.
Except fashion.
Yeah.
Yes, except for fashion. And when Dale and I have been off talking with people, they flat out say, you stumbled into this, didn't you? And we're like, yeah, 100%. Did not know what we were getting ourselves into.
So you stumbled in, and do you also have a programming background? Engineering, you said?
Yes,
okay.
engineering.
Okay, so how did you two meet?
We went to university and met like 10 years ago.
Okay.
11 now, almost.
Yeah.
So we were both in the same engineering program. I left the program to get a computer science degree because it was more what I was interested in.
And so how recent was this foray into the fashion industry?
3.5 to 4 years.
Okay.
I mean, we.
Oh, sorry, 3.5.
Yeah.
To 3.
You looked at your watch. You want to know exactly the seconds. So.
It's weird. I look at my watch to remind myself what the date is or what the year is, despite the fact it doesn't say the year. It's just this like mental shortcut. We started working. Like I quit the job I was working out of school June 1st of 2015 to work on this full time.
Okay, so tell us what it is, because I used the letters, but explain.
So. We're Scalable Garments. I'm not going to say the full name because we've been told it's way too long.
And engineering, which
Yep.
the technical people love, but yeah, we're learning.
And we are working on new knitwear technology to, right now, allow brands or retailers to offer their customers bespoke clothing at off-the-rack prices. So what this technology looks like, and it's inspired by 3D printing, CAD software, as well as like carbon fiber simulation from other industries. As Ian said, it's in other industries. So we're working on 3D design and knit simulation software so that we can design and digitally prototype a garment. So to go back to the waste, you're not making any waste when you're making those prototypes, because a computer's doing physical simulations for you.
Hooray.
But where we're working to eliminate most of the waste is we're developing a new type of knitting machine that, among other things, is seamless. So this allows us to use exactly the yarn that we need for the garment, and there's none of the waste from the cutting.
So you have two elements here. One is
Software.
Software
And hardware.
and hardware. The machine and the software to be able to do the seamless.
Or even just
Work.
clothing design,
Clothing
properly
design,
like you
okay.
would in other industries.
Yeah. And the reason why we're sort of doing both, because that's a lot of stuff, is the existing knitting machines aren't really designed to make one-off pieces of clothing. They'll make the same thing over and over and over again in a batch of 200 to 500 and up, depending on what your minimums
Thousands.
are. Yeah. So we're like, okay, we need a new knitting machine. And then we looked at the software, and there's not really any good design software for it. It's all built around cut and sew, which is you get the big bolt, you cut stuff out, you sew it together. And that's not really suitable for a seamless garment, which is one piece. So we started working on the software as well, and as we've looked at it, they kind of need each other.
Interesting. So is one of you more software? Yes, the
That would be me.
programmer. And the other is more machine.
Yes.
Engineer versus the programmer.
Yeah.
That's
It's
right.
nice to see there's a real role differential there.
Ian wasn't here in Amsterdam when I was attending the program because he was at home slaving over a hot 3D printer working on the prototype.
Literally slaving away over a hot 3D printer. Like, we've joked about this for a few weeks now, but it's 100% true.
So
Like,
it sounds like the only reference I have is the sort of development of the computer in a garage or something. Like, it feels like you're sitting there in your kitchen working on your machine. Where is the machine in Vancouver?
My spare room.
Oh, sorry. The 3D printer is in his spare room. The pieces which assemble the tiny little knitting bed test setup were...
Prototype.
Yeah, the prototype is mostly at my house.
Okay. So
Yep,
to me,
garage.
this sounds pretty groundbreaking.
Basement and garage and spare room.
You have beat the Silicon Valley group.
That's right. You're hard at Silicon Valley.
So I'm already, I can imagine everyone listening and is imagining, wow, what this could mean. I'm thinking two things. One is, okay, you're still in the very sort of early stage. And so going from your basement or living room to large-scale production is something that takes over the industry. Do you have a plan for that? Is there a timeline?
Yeah, we do. We think that it's going to take us, assuming we get all the money we need, and we need quite a bit of money because hardware development's expensive. But assuming we get that, we should be with a commercially viable set of technology in about 2.5 years, but that's not going to be commercial scaled. And I suspect it's going to take another 2.5, 3 years to build up the supply chain to get us the materials, because our plan is to do the actual manufacturing for the brands and retailers.
So let's look at the vision. Or what could this mean? Because, obviously, I'm thinking, okay, we move from the traditional way of producing clothing to on-demand, which we've been talking about for a while as a vision. So bespoke, when you need it.
On demand, just in time.
Just in time, all those things.
now.
2.5 years.
If these machines existed, would they be, do you imagine, your machine exists, but at the scale we're talking about, does this mean that the whole industry changes? If people can produce locally, would I have a machine at my home? Would I have it in my community? How do you think it would impact the whole industry? And then you may have views on this as well.
I was going to say the way I see that working is there would be a machine in your community or a community close by. And part of that is because if shipping raw materials is relatively easy and has low transport costs between environmental as well as just money. And then if we're doing the production really close to where the piece of clothing is being used, the environmental impact of it is much lower. Yeah. The other thing is by doing the production after the piece of clothing has been sold, so the on-demand nature, brands and retailers, they throw an incredible amount of clothing that they didn't sell. It's the wrong size, it's the wrong color, we over-ordered. And if we're just making the clothing that people need, then that is a huge amount of clothing that just never gets made, doesn't consume the resources or the money.
One part that actually attracted Fashion for Good to us, from what we can tell, is that we want to target some technology manufacturing that the previous startups they brought in didn't cover. And we tackle reduce more so than anything. Like, our sustainability angle is that...
using less.
Yeah. The volumes of overproduction and unsold garments is just vast.
That's an understatement, right?
Yes.
It's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal, it is. So I think having technology like this, even if it's within local communities, but also within shops of main shopping centres, within the, but also even within the factories themselves as places for this type of technology.
I can only imagine, though, what this means for the current business model.
This is knit though. You haven't got
Yes.
woven set up yet.
Yes, just knits.
So you're only tackling one area, one niche of the industry. So, but it's still a huge.
And do you see this technology being able to be expanded to beyond knit?
We definitely have some long-term plans for weaving machines and stuff based on similar sorts of technology. But right now we're focusing on knit apparel because it is sort of the easiest thing for us to target.
And do you have competitors? Are there other people doing this kind of thing? Because I've heard a lot about 3D printing, but maybe not in this integrated way.
So the major thing that we're going for is fit. So there are a bunch of people working on the fit side of things. But what we've seen is that they've tried to work on it and haven't really found that it's easy to do because the existing machines can't. They can't sort of reliably produce the clothing with the amount of physical, like a person getting in and tuning the machine, that you actually need to do this at scale. So, and the existing machine manufacturers, for the most part, innovation is making the needles go a little faster, or
Small tweaks rather than actual.
Or as Nin was talking about, like for the making those cutting scraps, the innovation there is slightly smarter layouts of the pieces to make fewer scraps, rather than anything that's going to make a huge difference.
Iterative rather than innovative or real jumps. Like, changing your...
Evolutionary versus revolutionary.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to.
And there's definitely efficiency that can be made through lean manufacturing, but the problem is within the industry, there's so many variables. Everything just varies all the time. The width of the fabric comes in slightly differently. And so all of these changes make it really impossible for lean manufacturing to solve the issues, although it definitely has a very big role within it. There's so much, even when lean manufacturing and all those approaches finish, there's still just so much more for it that we need these new types of... we see the industry's changing. It has already changed massively, and we see it's just continuing to change more and more. So it's going to be fascinating to see what these boys get up to.
Yes. So let me ask you both. Nin, I'll start with you. What's the one thing you need now to ensure that your approach is a success?
Well, we're doing a round of funding at the moment, but actually we're halfway through securing that. So hopefully, and we have some really good leads as well. So that's looking very positive. And we're working on two projects at the moment with two major retailers, global retailers, and we have another 3 or 4 in the pipeline, and our aim is to have work with 5 for the next 4 years, so we're definitely on target to reaching that. I just think we just need time. I just need more time to do all of the things we need to do, but we're definitely everything's very much falling into place for us at the moment, and people are really before people didn't said that we were wrong, that the leftovers wasn't in this volumes, and now the companies that we're working with and other organisations like RAP and stuff are backing us up. And we don't now have meetings with people who tell us, or very, very rarely, that that's not correct. So it's already been a shift. And we are pushing forward to getting people to talk about the pre-consumer problem. We have now the Pulse report this year at the Copenhagen Fashion Summit, mentioned it and referred to us, Ellen MacArthur Foundation as well. So it's beginning to... we're getting the conversation starting about it, which is a very important thing.
Brilliant. And they can find out more about it on your website, Reverse Resources. And you both, what do you need? I saw hands moving as if it's all about the money.
It's not all about the money. It's about we need to build a motorized prototype of the machine that we have. And because when we've been talking to people, they want to see, prove that you engineers can actually go build stuff. And that is going to require some money, some time, and some access to expertise.
So I want you to answer one more question for me. And it's a bigger picture question, because now you're working both at the very detailed level with your initiatives, but also have some sense, I'm guessing, on the challenges in the industry to transform overall. Do you have any opinions on what you think needs to happen, what needs to be prioritized for this industry to move to an industry that is circular, that is climate positive or water positive or such, those kinds of...
I mean, I don't come from a technical background. I come from a design background. I'm a very practical person. I told my friend I hadn't seen for a while the other day that I was co-founder of a tech startup, and she almost fell off her chair. But the fashion industry, the technology, we are increasing the technology in the past sort of, some 5 years or 10 years or so, but actually the systems are very old. And I think it's these... I read it recently that we're in the transition period, that we are leaving the information era and entering the innovation era. And in the transition period, it's an interesting concept, because in the transition period, you take the developments from the previous era and you use them to move forward with the next era. Yep. And if that's true, we need to use information to drive innovation. And I think that is really the key. We have all of this amazing technology to use to enable us to clean up and find new solutions, and that's even from a non-tech background, that just is so obvious.
From a tech background, I do not disagree at all. It is a lack of modern technology in the industry. Just full stop. That's what needs to change.
Yeah, it's really the technology. Our industry advisor, who we've had for 2.5 years now, 3.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I met him 3 years ago, but he was technically our advisor for 2.5 now. Yeah. Anyways, we'd go and we'd meet with him every month, talk about how we can make this happen, who else to talk to, because we've talked to thousands of end consumers, brands and designers and retailers at this point, though mostly just designers and end consumers, brands and stuff more recent thanks to the accelerator. But it was just, so you thought the apparel industry was bad before. Do I have more news for you? They're doing this actually, and it's just wait, what? How do we
even get clothing?
how do we even clothe
you think
properly?
it's a miracle that we get clothing today?
Yes.
When we've seen some of these machines, we saw knitting machines that were made in 2007, that you still had to program by sitting in front of them and typing every knit stitch into a keypad. So you might have several thousand stitches in a sweater, and somebody's poke, and we're like, what?
Wow. So you all think that this information should lead to innovation, and that this is really, to accelerate that, will transform where we are, where we need to go. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I like pointing out is that at least with the knitting machines, there's been some innovation, but it's been small incremental stuff, and they kind of just stalled 50 years ago. And what if consumer electronics had just stopped then? We'd still be sending mail.
Perfect. Well, that's very helpful. I want to thank you for being here. Really, really interesting. Good luck, because we need your innovations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like you're on the right path. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.